That's about other boys in there.
I think it's another fireplace on the other
We
side.
were gonna leave one of those open and it had all those holes in there.
Yeah, other.
It looks like originally there was a flue or something in it
The
here.
other fireplace. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, maybe, yeah, a pipe in there or
Yeah.
something.
So we'll just have to, like I say, when we get ready to redo that room, we'll tear that out over there and see
And
what's
see,
there.
yeah, because there is a jog
Yeah.
here. It looks like it could have covered it
Yeah.
up.
So if that's
That's really
true,
something.
I will,
Yeah,
you know,
that'll be a big discovery.
undo it.
Oh, that mantle is beautiful.
You've done a lot in a short time.
Like I say, really, we just brought things in here. We don't have curtains very much of the place or anything, you know. It's just a matter of
Very
trying to,
Yes, yes,
trying to
sometimes,
get it, you
yeah.
know.
Charlie was telling us, Ruth, you'd be interested in this, that originally this is Charlie Tripp, and he was telling us that originally this was quite a small house and it was
Well,
added
not
on.
tiny, I don't mean that, but this front part was added on. This out here, I think you can see from there out. I think that's what was added on, because I know it wasn't a great big house.
I mean, this where we're in now, this was the original house, and then from this archway out was new?
Maybe from this.
Yeah. Well, that's. She says that's probably where they got the bedrooms.
No, the bedrooms up there have this bedroom has the old whiteboard floors. This bedroom does. That bedroom does, but the front bedroom does not.
Well, they might have picked those up and moved them too. You know, people did take up the floors and put them where
It's
they
hard
wanted.
to tell.
No, it
you
is
know?
hard to tell.
You
But
take
I
the
know
doors-
that they built on it when they
But the
came.
NAP said that they saw a configuration of it, you know, at some date, and the configuration was as it is, you know, and it's been some time
Don't look so
since that
put
was.
on there, does it? I don't think so.
What's that?
This looks old. This part looks old. This is old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You can tell.
yeah, that's original.
Yeah. Now whether this is.
Now the cellar goes all underneath. I mean,
Does it?
Or the,
They didn't used to do that too much either, did they? They had
Well,
under porch.
anyhow, it's darn nice.
it certainly is, it's lovely.
Very pretty.
And they redid the kitchen, and so, you know, there was a fireplace in here. The Naps
Oh,
took
there
it out.
was.
Naps took it out.
Nice kitchen.
It's lovely.
I'm not sure where the fireplace was. There was also a door that went out on that side of the house.
Yeah, that's right. I can
So, did a little, you know,
Yeah.
changing
It's
around.
a nice room too.
So you really have
now
almost
this
like-
she used for dining room,
Yes.
and I'm in the process of getting ready to take this paper off, and we're going to use this for family room, you know, once we get it all.
Right in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Family likes to be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So ideally, it would even be nice to take that wall out, but you know, I don't know. You know, we thought for if you wanted to resell it and you took the wall out, somebody else might. You know, everybody
Right.
wants to use the house differently.
Yeah,
So
that's
it probably isn't too smart.
You might
know,
run into a lot of
even though it would
problems,
be real
too.
nice, you know. It probably isn't too smart to do it, you know. But you can see that, I think, you know, a lot of the pictures, like the door, like the, you know, this stuff is all old,
Yeah.
pretty old, and
Yeah.
the doors are old. You know, you can, you know, see on either, they're the old style doors.
And this one from the front to the back too, that hallway went right through.
Yeah. That's a nice,
Mhm.
nice feature, I think, of any
Yeah.
house.
I wonder, Ruth, if this,
Look at that
like
big
if
old
Charlie
door.
said this house was small to begin with, I'm wondering if it went from here to here originally because of this archway and all, maybe, do you think maybe the house originally ended here and then this was built on later?
It would be, see, but you know, that's possible.
Do you think maybe the house, Charlie, went from that front door to here?
I don't remember.
The other end, I think.
But it wasn't as big as it is now. But I don't know just how they did do it. I can't remember.
It's one of the Downings
Yeah, I'm
spotted
sure.
that they built on.
And the Downing spot, if they built onto it,
That's what Charlie was telling us. We were sitting up there in the rain in the car.
yeah,
Yeah, they
Edgar
spread it out sort of, you know, it didn't used to go out like that. You know, they spread it out. They-
Now that's what I think. I think those rooms, I think that room and the room above it were added on at that time. That's what I think.
Oh, maybe.
Because everything else seems very as it
Mm.
was, as it
Like
was.
this.
I know it didn't look so,
Pat Downing.
Yeah, I tried to call her all week, Mrs. Downing, and she wasn't home. She must be visiting her daughter or
It
something.
might be.
Yeah.
I don't see her too often, I think she does.
she must be getting quite elderly too.
Was he teasing you?
No.
Our deed is quite old, and it reads,
I don't know, I just, I thought
it reads all of a certain house and lot situate, lying and being in Harts Village in the town of Washington, Dutchess County, New York, described as follows. Beginning at a point on the north line of the Dutchess Turnpike Road at the southeast corner of land belonging to Mary Ann Merritt, thence running easterly 86 feet along the highway, Merritt is the house that way, thence northerly 44 feet, passing 4 feet west of the store, which is the house next door. It has burned down, and parallel therewith, thence bearing northeasterly 34 feet to strike the southeast corner of the platform of the well, thence northerly 42 feet to a point 13 feet 6 inches west of the northwest corner of the wagon house, thence northerly 35 feet to the southeast corner of the old barn, thence northerly 39 feet running between the old and new barn to the northeast corner of the hog pen, then northwesterly 22 feet to the garden fence, thence north 72 degrees to the northeast corner of the lot or garden fence, thence westerly 71 feet to the northeast corner of the lot intersecting the east line of Mary Ann Merritt, thence southerly along the line of said Merritt's land 142 feet to an angle on the fence, thence westerly 20 feet to an angle on the fence, thence southerly 132 feet to the place of beginning, containing more or less. And that is what the, so the deed goes back to when some Merritt still owned that house.
They built,
And the store was evidently still there. I mean, this is written a long time ago.
Merritt built the house where Mrs. Day is.
Right. I got that from reading. I have a bunch
That's the Merritt.
of... Right.
And they built that one, built one on this, close to the road here too. And he was involved with the Harts daughters.
Right, he married one of them, right.
See, the Harts lived in the back where
Right.
Mrs. Donato lives now. And then eventually Carrie Havlin lived in there when I was.
From what I could understand, this may have been a Merritt house. I was reading through, and it said that the house was built for Merritt's brother. And I think that originally,
I
they
think
said that this might have been
what
our
happened,
house.
that this came off of that property.
Right. But I think it was maybe for his brother,
Yeah,
according to what, there was some reading.
she said that, didn't she, that
Yeah.
some houses was for the two daughters and one for, I think she said that up here.
Let's see. If I can find which one of these things this was on.
See, the red house over here where, what do you call this, is all torn down and everything. You remember that one, Charles?
Yeah. That was over
What they
where.
call that? It was red and long, old,
Sure, that's,
Lida Howe lived there, and it belonged to Aunt Carrie Howland.
Yeah.
That place, didn't it?
yeah, Hetty lives over there now.
Yeah, well, that's all new though.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the property. I mean,
But
that's where
that,
it was.
yeah, I like
Yeah,
that
that was
old,
very-
that
very
was
old.
a beautiful,
Did that burn or did they take it down?
I think it tore down. It's a
Oh.
shame. That was real old.
Tell you who lived there one time for a short while too was Marguerite Flannery Broadnack's mother lived there for a while.
It was very old. I remember Lida talking about it,
Lida Howard.
This is a good
Yeah.
article.
Yeah,
It
Bill,
tells a lot about Harts.
that's where Hasner
You've
died.
probably seen it.
Now, where did you get these, Ruth?
From the Naps.
Oh, really?
This is something from Dutchess County Doorways, which is evidently something that was
Never
published in
found it in the attic.
1931.
Don't you think? Probably found it in the attic.
Gee, I'd like to get a copy of this for the Historical Society. Of these things.
Would be nice
Yeah,
if we could
Astor
copy
House
some of those,
on Harts Road.
if she didn't mind.
That was in the library.
I think this is probably in the library.
Mrs. Donato gave me a copy of this from Dutchess County Doorways, but I haven't seen this.
Wood.
One of the articles referred to.
Oh, Rye Harts Village. Oh, this? Do you remember there was that series in the,
That had to do with the
the
road.
Poughkeepsie Journal a number of years ago?
I have that.
Yeah,
Yes.
had to do with the road.
Because at the time these were being printed, we lived on Titusville Road, and they said, why Titusville? Why Manchester
here's the one
Bridge
that
and all that?
mentions-
And I saved
it
all of them and put them in the
says,
children's baby books.
In 1807,
And I
Philip
found the
Hart's
journal
daughter
one.
Catherine married Dr. Alfred Treadway. The Treadways lived in a house built next to her parents. Another daughter, Elisa, married Isaac Merritt in 1821. A big white house was built for them, and another for a brother of Isaac Merritt. And that's why I thought
That's-
perhaps
that's-
this house would
that's
be
this
that
one.
house.
Really, you're right.
Yeah, I would think so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that's in that
That's
article, which is
interesting.
probably in the
That's
library.
very interesting.
I asked the Poughkeepsie Journal at one time if they would redo these series because there had to be so much research done in these. They had them all through Dutchess County, and it was like in the 50s, 1950s, and or early 60s. And they said something about, we'll write a letter, and I can't remember at this stage of the game whether I did or whether I didn't, but they had. I said it was before the bicentennial, and I said, gee, you know, you must have all that research in your file. And whoever
This
did
book
the
is probably in
research
the
would be ashamed if it
library,
weren't
too. It's through
redone.
Dutchess County.
And
Well, this,
That's what I was doing.
this
1909.
Treadway and White's in here, they live right alongside the road, this big house over here.
He'll have a new
Said
plot
that
in
it's
his
that in
head.
the Treadways, it's the Mulchek's house.
He did wonderful that
Okay.
night.
I don't know who lives there now, but
No,
they're
He
right
did a
close to the
beautiful
road.
job.
Right.
Really,
Right,
everybody.
George. He loved it.
I remember Francis and Harriet White.
Spent a lot of
Mary,
time on it.
or
too. He enjoyed
Mary
it.
Hart and Catherine Donahue and everything. Oh, they just,
Too bad they couldn't have come today. They supposed to have worked.
yeah.
That's it.
Here, we gotta get the phone in the other room.
On the right going up Valley Farm Road
Uh-huh,
was their carriage house.
okay, Somebody made that into a lovely
Yeah.
place.
Then later on they got a car, and the horse business was over with, and then they kept the car up and then made a garage out of it. What used to be the carriage house. They used to come up in the summer.
You made a
Very
friend
old
of it.
ladies.
Isaiah was the cook, wasn't he? Wasn't that his
No,
name?
no, they weren't Carrie Havens, Isaiah.
Yeah, that was, I know that was somebody over here. Was
Sam-
right,
Sam-
right
Sam
outside.
Hayes.
Well,
Sam-
Now, I remember
Right forward.
Isaiah though.
Well, Isaiah.
Isaiah Gordon, yeah.
Carrie
They
Havens.
did
Yeah,
warming.
that's one, and Hunt Otis.
And they did catering. They were very
He
lovely.
was nice.
Did a good job.
Did all the housework, cleaned everything, I guess.
That's where the Treadway White business, that's where they live.
It's probably the beginning of the Treadway Inn.
That's probably, yeah, well, that could be.
Keep your hand on that.
Stranger things than that
Mm.
Keep those.
That's valuable.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance, would you run off a
Yes,
copy
I
of
will.
that
Uh-huh.
so that we could have
We
it
would
in our
love
files?
it. Great.
I sure will. I'm glad you could come.
How's it
Well,
look,
thank
Austin?
you so
Open the
much.
door and see how it looks. Maybe we better make a break.
The rain.
Oh, you
See
mean
what
we're
it-
heading out?
Well, I mean, the rain.
Hi there. Oh, sorry we're late. We've been, we've been waiting for the rain to get over. We couldn't really even get out of the car. Yeah.
Okay, you're the center of attention.
This is what I like. He's old.
Yes, he is.
Good condition. Very good.
Is he really? He's very good condition.
Do you know about what date this was built?
1800, it's on the tax rolls, so probably a couple of years before that.
I love that trying to do a thing under the
Yeah,
window.
it's very Georgian.
Yes.
I'm making out.
It's lovely.
A lovely door.
Yes.
This doorway was put on after, there was a front doorway. This is the second door, this was 1828, this doorway was put on. It was a simpler door to start with, and that's in the back. And then they fancied up. Supposedly, Mr. Hart was, Mrs. Hart was a Quaker, and he was not. And that's why the outside of the house is so fancy and the inside is rather simple. She had her way inside.
Inside, you had it outside. That's a good way to do it.
But according to the history, they were very happily married, and it was a very nice. And they had all daughters.
The Harts home.
Yes, this is Philip's Harts home. And originally, the front was white, and the back was the buttermilk red,
Oh.
which you can still see. Chip
You
down,
said
it's still
your
red.
house was too, Helen, wasn't it?
It was yellow when we went
I
there.
thought you said something about red, though.
No, yellow.
Oh.
Yellow with white trim. And a long porch. We took it all.
Does Mrs. Donato know what your house is, Helen, and hers?
It's right there.
Tell her.
Ours is
I know,
Yeah.
but I didn't know what she
1810.
Mr. Haddock said it was built by his.
Where, let me see, that is, I guess that's
Across the creek that way?
Ruth Owens, isn't it?
Yes, directly across is the
Well,
Owens, and then
Helen is right next.
next door.
Yeah.
And there's a smokehouse in the back.
There's a smokehouse in the back of your property, really? I love your little carriage.
Yeah, it needs fixing again. We fixed it when we first came, and it's apart again. We've got to fix it again.
It takes a lot of fixing to keep it up.
Just keep going.
We have the same trouble.
The kitchen window had Philip A. Hart and Susanna A. Hart engraved with their diamond on it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and we've replaced the window. We had to because we redid the kitchen, but it's wrapped up very, very carefully up in the attic in the
Someday
loft
you'll
over
find
there.
some way to use it, maybe.
Well, you shouldn't. You know, it's got the dates on it,
Yeah.
1800, and their handwriting. And there's many other windows that are signed, but that's the one with Mr. and Mrs. Hart's name.
I didn't realize they used to do it.
Yes.
Yes, they did. I found it as I was cleaning windows.
Mm-hmm.
You'd start seeing
We
different
have one in
initials
our
on
front
different
room that
windows.
says Jack or something like that. They scratched on with a pin.
This is so clear. It's a shame that it's up in the loft, but I don't know what else to do with it. You know, as long as it's preserved, it's okay.
Right.
We had a horse block down. Climb up on.
So how many rooms do you have?
8. That's enough. The hall is so large. So it takes up quite a lot.
Now this addition over here, when was this this was not originally a garage, I assume.
The old kitchen.
This was the old kitchen. Okay.
There wasn't a kitchen inside, but this was it. The back break.
Oh
And
my.
these are all the pantries.
Mm.
Butter pantries, milk pantries, all that sort of stuff.
No.
The stove was over there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this was a kitchen, I understand, in the 30s when Hunt Otis was here. This was a summer kitchen.
I wasn't in it then, but
Um,
yeah.
when what is her name? The woman who bought it from the Hunt Otis.
There's a lot of eggs over there.
Yeah, the stove was over
You mean
here.
Miss
and it
Haviland?
was-
Miss Haviland? Carrie
No,
Haviland?
no, no, no.
Oh, no, from Otis.
No, Baby Charlie. Sidnell Walker. She was
Oh,
Dean
yeah.
of Bassett, and she
Yeah.
bought it from
Oh, yes.
Hunt Otis.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the first time it left the family. It was in
Where the
1953.
man slept too. They had color too.
I don't think there's a loft here. They probably
Yeah,
slept
somewhere
upstairs.
else.
But
Yeah, well, I lost track of.
it was a working kitchen until
Yeah.
She was an
53.
intern.
Well, they had that, you know, they didn't used to cook in the kitchen in the summer. You know what I mean? That kept the whole house cool. And then they put the food in and.
And I understand Hunt Otis, they didn't live here in the winter for a few years. They lived in Stoneham's house.
Yeah, they did.
It was too hard to heat or something.
They ought to be living down.
last winter.
So that's the brown house next door is the Stoneham house. Now that's Larry's father. You said, oh.
Yeah.
Are they still there?
Yes.
This day, you know, on the old Downing house, she said, boy, that was a cold place last winter. Every woman there,
she told me.
she couldn't keep it.
45 degrees in the kitchen.
She couldn't do nothing. She said you just couldn't keep it warm.
I think that Isaac Merritt built that house, and he married a daughter of
Yeah.
Philip Hart.
Yeah, we figured that.
Treadway is next door. That's, was it Mo? mall next to me, people next door, I'm not sure.
Oh, right over this way.
Yeah, right
Yeah,
next door.
right next
That's
door.
Treadway. Now, that was another daughter of Philip
That was
Hart?
another daughter of Philip Hart. I don't think he had any sons, he had only daughters.
Charlie says no.
I don't think so.
3 daughters.
He's the native, so everybody says Charlie.
He dates a little bit farther back than I. I came here when I was 8 years old.
Helen's a native too, but she's not as old as Charlie is.
There's nice people live here. Sweetest old lady.
Well, I
Carrie.
can't make myself
Carrie.
any younger. I was born in 1903, I
Mrs.
can't
Hay
change
told
that
me
any.
a lot about what I knew about
Aunt
this
Carrie
house.
was great. Wasn't
She
she,
said-
Charlie?
Huh?
Aunt Carrie Havlin was a great woman.
Wonderful
Yes,
person.
I
Very
remember
sweet
her.
person.
Somebody, and I can't think who it is now, had some slides a few years back. And I can't think who took the pictures. And one of the nicest pictures I ever saw in my life was Aunt Carrie sitting on that front porch out there with all the flowers in bloom. And she looked as if she could speak to you.
Yeah.
She was a wonderful woman anyway. That was.
They have formal gardens where
No,
Mr.
no,
Stoneham's
some
lawn is
man
because
had it. I can't
it's
think
like
who.
this, you know, they have the,
She spoiled Hunt, you know, he was her
Oh.
baby, he was her nephew. And she just spoiled him, you
Now,
know.
wasn't it Aunt Florence lived next door? Florence White?
Yeah, it was, yeah,
Frances-
she was another aunt.
Frances and
Frances
Harriet,
White.
two sisters.
Right. And Mrs. Hay told me that Aunt Carrie used to go and visit Aunt
back and
Frances
forth.
back and forth, and there was a black man used to follow them and turn up the gravel on the,
Yep.
where they had disturbed the gravel.
Really?
They just used to go right around, and that's when labor was cheap.
I remember somebody living here in between, and they have,
Between who?
between,
My mother is moving to England, and otherwise I'd invite you.
Maybe-
over.
Oh, no, wait, no, it's a miserable day to go in anyone's house.
Stuff.
But
Oh,
we appreciate it.
after,
Just being able to
It's
come look
straightened
in the
out.
outside and get the history of the house is wonderful.
after
And
Miss
thank you
Walker,
so much for those.
somebody else was here, because we hadn't to come here. I don't know.
No.
Is that thunder?
And,
Miss Walker, she died when we moved in.
oh, really? Then it was before Miss Walker. That's when it was. Because we came over here, and,
They may have been keeping her or something, but I know she's the second.
remember something about a white coat? Someone had a white coat on when they were...
I can't do it, it's not my fault.
Well, I think maybe,
He wants to
maybe,
go in now, huh? He's tired of all the
He
fun
said
and
that's
games.
enough of that gammon.
Be careful.
Like there's a couple of hamburgers.
Planks there, Charlie. I said there's some planks down there. I remember you
Yeah, I
said the
know.
other night you had palms looking down. So.
yeah, I have to look
He
down.
wants to go in there and he wants me to open the
He
door.
thinks you should do it, Austin.
Huh?
He thinks you should do it.
Took it out. I've always been worried about some child falling.
That was a well,
Keep it
Winnie?
covered, yeah.
You could pump water on it, but
Oh,
it
really?
made us very nervous. With kids around.
Oh, look, a brick smokehouse. Isn't this?
Oh, now I try to use that for something, I don't know what. Isn't that nice?
Oh, this is adorable.
Sure that wasn't the jail?
It looks like a hotel, yeah.
Ah, yes.
I used to hang the meat. See the hooks up there.
Uh-huh.
Vent it out that way.
But isn't this handy?
Did you cover up the hole?
No,
for that? You didn't.
it was when we
It
came.
was, okay. And did they just build a fire in the center here, or they?
I don't really know how they did it, Ellen Marie.
They hung all the things.
They hung
They
it.
hung the things up.
I
and
think the
somewhere
fire
else-
was out. I don't think the fire was in. I think the smoke came in. It didn't.
Oh, they
I don't know.
built it.
Maybe some of the men would know, but I have the impression that the fire was not in. The fire was out and the smoke was vented in.
Oh,
But I'm not so sure about that.
You know, I think we better go. It's very black up in the subway. I want to get.
This was another daughter of the Harts.
Yeah,
Had
but-
this house. Okay.
Mrs. Treadway, and then after that, the Treadway's daughters, Frances and Harriet White, lived here when I was a young fellow.
All right.
I don't know who's here now. The latest people that the present generation might know were the Mimses. They bought it, and Colonel Wood lived in here before that.
Right.
So I don't know who lives there at the moment.
Ruth Williams mentioned their name. The name began with an M, but they bought it, I think, from the Mims.
Very
Mims.
recently.
Yes.
all that
They went to
very-
our church, and then they sold it.
Yeah, didn't they get transferred? He was with IBM and they got
Yeah.
transferred again or something.
Yeah, they're down in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
They're transferred to Greenwich, Connecticut. Oh, I think he's been transferred.
When we go over the bridge here, can you tell us a little bit about, you had said about like there was another dam here?
Yeah. This, this stream goes under here. You can hardly see that there's a bridge, but there's the stream, see? Going down through there. And this low place here was the mill pond for Harts Mill.
Oh, isn't it?
And where the Berets lived was the mill, which was operated by this Philip Hart, from whose house you just came, where Mrs. Donato lived.
Oh,
And then there was an old house up on the corner that belonged to them also, which has been torn down in years. But all that low place down in there was the mill pond for that mill where the Berets lived.
Oh, I see. And now you said there was another dam that is no longer in existence. I always try to figure out how that could be a mill because the mill, I never could figure out where the wheel could have been,
Well,
but
right-
that
right
makes sense of
downstairs
it
down in
because
there.
if they took out the
The dam
dam.
isn't there now. See, then,
Okay.
then there was another dam down by Dayheim Mill. That was the second one. This one down here was for this mill.
Yeah, let's,
So,
well, see if you dammed it up, it would.
yes,
fill all in.
right. If it were dammed up, it,
This all down in here was
Yeah.
the mill
What
pond.
kind, what mill was it? I mean, what kind of?
Cloth, cotton and stuff. Cotton and wool.
Oh, so
Fabric.
that's why they used Owens's house for the dyeing of the cloth.
Oh, Owens's house was used for
That's
dyeing of
where
the cloth?
uniforms were made, wasn't
Wool and
it? Yeah, that's what I understood.
Wool.
Probably.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
That was tiny little. But they told me that.
Well, that probably was told you.
Hmm.
They used to make something that made them look like. Maybe they dyed
You
it
hardly
probably
realize
was.
this was a bridge now.
Probably
Yeah.
was some part of it, too.
That was where
Yeah.
the bridge
Seems
was.
to me they said that, Helen. Somebody said that was some.
One place
Well,
they dyed it, one place
if we
they.
see Ruth, we would she'll tell us.
I don't know who said that to us.
Here,
There
here,
had
here.
been something there besides.
Why does somebody hold this and then I can just continue talking about the houses and I can drive.
When you get to my car, I'm going to get out.
That's in there.
I don't care if it is. Who's that hit me on the head? Aren't you coming in my house? Yeah. I'll come to your house and then I'll run across the street.
This here is so
I'll
beautiful.
go into her house
They
and
have done
You
here.
got a little
across.
cement foundation,
Yeah.
that's what's left of George Sailor's ice house.
Yeah, that was there when I was. They used to get very big eyes.
And we used to go over there and pump the water to wash the ice off.
Here's the Owens house.
And that footbridge, he doesn't have any.
I have a
footbridge
picture that
doesn't
with
have any
snow on
flooring
it.
in
I
it.
got another
It's
one.
pretty, but it's very dangerous.
Well, it doesn't have any flooring in it.
I wonder if anybody ever does try to walk across.
You can just go right in here, Helen. I just
would
pull
try
right
it
in here.
myself.
Yeah, just pull right in.
Yeah.
One car's in, one car's out. I really don't want to have to rush us, but I'm.
Got much time.
Save yourself now.
Mr. Hurry said, got a damn thing to do.
In 1962, we added on this part.
Oh, really?
This part?
That part? Yeah. I'm gonna have brick here, I only got half of it.
That'll be nice. Like a little patio.
This is where the house,
Your Pakistan room.
my nephew has his house.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, so it's like a two. Look at your lily of the valley growing up in the rocks. That's beautiful, Helen.
It has taken over.
And that'll come up. We've got some by our back door.
Used to be all myrtle. And it's
That's pushing it right.
it's only pretty now. They don't have to
Yeah, I hate to try.
can't have to see the.
Oh, it's a shame it's my shoes right here. Isn't? Oh, look at the floor.
Oh, it looks so nice. You can make it with a
Hi, Elton.
Hi, Elton.
And when we had this one on, I was thinking about indirect writing. No, I have indirect writing.
Oh, isn't that?
Oh, Johnny, come on.
Now this is where the, oh, look at the mill pond. Oh, my.
Can you see?
Oh, you sure can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Beautiful, I know.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, there's the pond. Everyone here.
yeah, for
We
here.
gotta wait a little bit.
Take a look at the pond out here.
Now,
Sit right in.
Boy, they're really up high here, you know.
oh, sure are. Whew. Look at the big cliff here, yeah. Isn't this gorgeous?
Oh, come on.
Probably right.
Are they gonna use this phone?
Yeah.
Basement. It's probably the basement.
There's a dam right there.
Yeah?
Yeah, right there.
Now, over here, there's,
Beautiful job on these floors.
by the
Oh, yeah, nice.
mill, there's a big, like, rock. Is that where the mill was? I mean, there's like a big rock foundation.
The mill is down
Yeah.
below.
Yeah.
I don't know about this house, how this was when there's a mill. But there's another mill down there.
Right.
A wheel.
Clean it up. Oh, it looks so pretty.
There's a pipe down there, and you go downstairs, and there's a valve that you open up to let the water down, to run a water wheel down there.
Really?
In the mill.
In the mill next door.
The mill next door.
There's a big pipe, it's so
Free dam.
that big.
Some,
If you open up, there's a place down there where, you know, the wheel that you open it up, and then the water goes down and runs over the water wheel and makes that grind
That's
feed
still
and
there.
stuff down. That's still there.
They're
The water
making
wheel is
over
still
to
there.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Yeah. I wish that would be very interesting. No, not there. It wouldn't be for you because you're the neighbors, but yeah.
Now this is the same in the front.
Yeah?
Except there was a porch.
Porch all the way across.
There was a porch across the full.
And there was, the chimneys seemed to be all in the upper rooms. We took
It
out
was
one
a chimney, starting at
still
the
right in
floor,
here.
upstairs and going up.
It was starting upstairs.
Yeah.
It must have been, then,
Oh. I just had this consultant design here to see the house.
Isn't that nice?
Just a couple of, there's just 2 rooms there. That
Yes.
we made into bathrooms for the kitchen. And we never didn't like it, so we made it all over.
Does your cellar go right into the rock down there?
No, there's a rock under here and there's no cellar. There's a cellar on the other side, but not on this side.
these are lovely, like French doors going in.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
We have these open most of the time. Oh, we forgot to open today. But we have these windows put on not too long ago.
And
And we have those open.
yeah. In the wintertime, it must give you a lot of solar energy.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have them open late, you know, late in the year.
Did you put screening in the summer later?
Yes, you take out those 2 sections there.
And put
We put them in soon.
Yeah. Now, over here, Helen, this stone business, this is what I meant before. This is not where, oh, that's part of the dam.
That's a dam there. The fall
Yeah,
runs up.
yeah.
Oh, I have a picture of that.
In the wintertime, when the leaves are off the trees, that's when you can get the pictures of that walking bridge and little footbridge.
This is a picture of the fall.
Oh my, isn't that pretty?
And then these pictures.
Those are beautiful.
This is how the front. That's how the front looked. It's just my sister there, but this is the way it looked. That was
Oh, the whole thing is porch.
And this is where we gradually began to get it fixed over. Yeah. That's another one.
And look at that.
That's where we.
Where you actually tore the porch off.
Yeah, we hadn't put the terrace back yet.
Well, not the bridge, but the dam.
Oh, isn't that nice?
No, I
This is the stone that I saw that I asked you.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's right over there.
Yeah, yeah. Is that a
Oh no,
window in
that's on
there?
this side.
Is this a window
I'll
in there?
show you that when we go up front. I'll show you. Oh yes, there's a building. This is a tower. This is a tower.
That's the tower, okay.
But that's Priscilla.
No, that's Gwen.
Is it Gwen?
Gwen. They're all Gwen.
Oh, Gwen.
Yeah.
Look at there. Isn't he cute?
This is Gwen. Was giving a concert
West Village Rail and Chamber of Grand Grove conductor.
Oh,
Yeah.
how you done?
This church burned down in New York.
Oh,
And
my.
she's giving me a benefit.
Oh, is it the St. Luke's? St. Luke's?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, the ships used to come up there.
Yeah.
But
Is this the deed to your house, Helen?
yeah.
Oh, my.
All that parcel of land situated in the village of Millbrook, town of Washington, so forth, beginning in the center of the highway leading from Hartsville to Millbrook, and at the southwest corner of the lot owned by Carolyn Haviland, and running from thence north 76 degrees, 30 minutes west, about 2 chains, 27 links to the east bank of the creek, thence southeasterly to a point 2 feet west of the southwest corner of the house, thence in a southwesterly direction 64 feet to a point being the southwest corner of the herein described parcel, thence at right angles easterly 49 feet to a point in the fence, which point is 42 feet northerly of the northeast corner of the Dayhem Mill, that's that down there,
Okay.
building, thence continuing the line to the center of the highway, thence along the center of the highway to the place of beginning.
Isn't that something?
And now here's where it says Alfred E. Dietrich.
Yes.
Ethel E. Dietrich's wife of the town of Washington, and Bertie F. Foster and Anna J. Foster, his wife. That's my mother and
The
father.
same place your mother and father, Helen, isn't it? Okay.
So it was owned by Dietrich.
It was owned by Diedrich.
Yeah, Alfred E. Dietrich.
Well, that's what Charlie said, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, he said that, yeah. The mills were owned by Diedrich.
Well,
Well, thank you so much, Helen. Wow, that's
And that was out
lovely.
front.
Okay.
I'm glad you found us this morning.
Yeah.
Oh, but it's
Oh, this is beautiful. Mm. Mm.
yeah.
Oh, my.
Down here.
Look at the stone wall all the way around. Good thing you have it, otherwise you fall right over in the...
Well, it was in the water. There's the tower.
And the
Oh, okay.
and there's a there used to be something in there that worked the mill, you know.
You know,
There's a
it
pipe.
looks like the walls down around the Dietrich estate.
Yes,
The
the
same builder
work-
probably
the
did it.
same workman.
Yeah.
The Galucos and the Towers and some of those.
Yeah.
Safari. Dale Holiday. So, that's a pretty little flower in there. When you get down below, you see the pond.
Oh, that's a rock.
Best I can. Diedrich built it. And this was the front door there. It was for grinding grain, any kind of grain, corn, wheat, oats, and farmers used to bring their stuff here, and then they load and unload there. Of course, all water power. And as you saw, the dam for it there, the water wheel was down low, and the grinder on the second floor below. Then it was pushed up overhead by water power. And then they come back down and fill the feed bags coming down from the upper floor there. But
It's a big building.
it's a big building. Yeah.
Drop up there.
Isn't that some drop out
About
there in
9
there?
stories now.
Oh, I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
That's where Gloria Malala lives, you know.
Okay, yeah, you have mentioned that, and I didn't realize that.
I can't think of his name.
Dominic. Yeah, the father died just a while ago.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
What's his name, Dominic, the young one?
No, the one that died, the one we used to call Chick. They lived
The
here.
son.
But doesn't Dominic live here? I thought Dominic lived here too.
Maybe he does.
Maybe.
Charlie, I
There's
think...
no guardrail or anything right there.
Right
They keep
there,
you from
really?
going down in the thing anyway.
Really? Back where you were taking that picture?
Yeah.
Really? There was no guy? You said that this was originally built by,
Diedrich.
Diedrich. Okay. This is one of his...
They called it Dayheim Mill. Everything was Dayheim. The estate up there
Stand for?
it's a German for the home.
Oh, the home.
Okay.
Two separate ones,
But as they put it all together.
Yeah.
It was Dayheim Farms and Dayheim Mill and the estate was
See,
Dayheim.
one time they went all over in that state, but I missed out.
They didn't go all over it, because it's too big.
Yeah, well, I moved around the house.
No, but I was just.
And I don't know how old or anything about it one way or another, but it's supposed to be one of the oldest houses in the area, you know, in the village. It's real old.
As Paul J. Haight has it now, and then Colonel Woods had it after he moved from that Winterhart village there, yeah.
Well, because that was because Colonel Woods worked for Paul J. Haight.
Yeah, he was.
Oh, okay,
He was the
okay.
manager of it or something, and that's why he had the house, why he was able to live there.
Oh, I see. It was owned by Paul J. Haight, and even when Colonel Woods lived here. Oh,
I
okay.
think that, to my knowledge, that's
That's
way I
probably true.
understood it.
That's probably
Yeah,
true.
yeah, he was managing,
I didn't know the hate owned it at that time. I knew the, you know, the connection, but I didn't know.
But you don't know anything about the history of it?
No, I don't really. When I was a little kid, it was an old house.
Just a young house. Troy, can you just tell us a little bit about the, this was what, the Masonic Hall? And it's been recently sold?
Yeah.
The architecture there is so pretty.
Well, that was the piece of ground that it sits on was purchased from James Reardon, who was originally at Reardon Briggs, in 1892, and presumably it was purchased by the Millbrook Club, a group of men who had a kind of a private club, and presumably the building was built shortly thereafter, and they sold it to Helsing Lodge in 1917. Helsing Lodge just sold it in 1981. So the building probably was built shortly after 1892. And right alongside of it, very close, practically where this drive-in entrance is, was Ben Woolheater's plumbing shop. That was torn down. The bank bought it and tore it down when they fixed that entrance there. Little building with a plumbing shop downstairs and an apartment upstairs.
Oh,
And that was in 1906. The edition of the paper was 1906, and a picture of the man, and he had died, and it had a picture of his blacksmith shop that sat here where the rectory is, and he had sold the property to Father Burns. So if they can find out when the Father Burns was here, they can find out when they got a hold of the property.
okay.
Now, I don't know Father Burns at all, because that's before I would remember anything about it. I don't think he had sold the property prior to 1906, of course. But the article, his obituary, and historically his blacksmith shop, which was probably 1859 or 60, he had the blacksmith shop or something like that, 1867. Because he died in 1906, and then the article was about his being a blacksmith.
I see, I see.
So, and it said it didn't say what year he sold the blacksmith shop property, but he said he sold the property to Father Burns for the rectory.
Now, what article was this, and what paper? The
It was in the Poughkeepsie paper.
In the Poughkeepsie
Poughkeepsie Eagle or something. Edna Tilsey's got the article.
Isn't that something? Well, Monsignor didn't know about that. He said he had been told that this rectory was originally up on the hill,
Well, it might have been.
and that it was moved down here, so that makes sense.
It might have
After,
been after they bought that
yeah,
property.
and it was that dentist, what was it, Dr. Mahoney, I guess, has filled Monsignor in with a lot of the information, because
Probably.
he was a
Probably.
Millbrook native, wasn't he? Yeah.
Because he was here in the early days.
Yes.
He lived, what,
No, he's from
Wassaic?
Wassaic. He was born and brought up in Wassaic.
Yeah, I know, but I said he was in Millbrook in the early days.
Well, not too early, because he hadn't.
Was here by the 1920s.
Yes, but when his wife Anna Hilligus came here to teach music, he had just nicely got started in the dental business here. He had his dentist office here not too long before that. She taught school up here, and they met and married, and he'd lived here, you know, from there on. But
Yeah, but
she
that
taught.
was before 1921.
Yes, it was, because she taught up there. I went to school, she was teaching me, she taught music.
Yes,
When I
there
was in
was
high school.
another one in there in between.
Yes. I can't think of her name, I can see her right now.
Well, let me go see if Monsignor is here or Father George and get some of the history about. In the record, there is a picture of the church taken in 1871. And I don't know whether it was when it was dedicated or what. And we moved to Millbrook in 1971, and we came over to talk with Monsignor one evening about having our children go to St. Joseph's School. And while we were waiting for him, we were sitting in the room where this picture was, and I naturally got up and looked at the picture. And it said 1871, and I thought, oh, we're coming on the centennial of the founding of the church and parish, you know. So let me see if Monsignor is in, and then he can tell us some more information.
But ducks.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
I know it's raining.
Well, it's been off and on, and this is why we've lost, you know. Yeah, this afternoon. Now, it's said that earlier the day was supposed to rain this morning and be over with, and it did just the opposite.
That's because we were having the first Holy Communion today.
That's right, right. It didn't rain for that. I was thinking about that.
Now than it was then.
On the other side, up from Croton Falls. We have records as Dutchess County is concerned. We know that shortly after the Revolutionary War, there was a priest sent up to Fishkill, and he said Mass there and so on to talk to the Catholics. First recorded history we have around here is around 1842 or 45, somewhere, where the church was established in Poughkeepsie, Holy Trinity Parish. Holy Trinity, St. Peter's. And the priest in St. Peter's once a year would come out to this area, and Harts Village was the place where they would say Mass and preach and teach. There's a record of a woman by the name of Mrs. Degnan, who would go to Mass. If the priest couldn't come out, she would go with her family over to St. Peter's in Poughkeepsie. But needless to say, it was an all-day trip. And she's buried up here in the cemetery. By 1869, the church in Mena was established, and the priests there were told by the bishop to come over here and take care of the Catholics. In those days, the parish consisted of area in Harts Village, Clinton Corners, Bangor, and part of Pine Plains. Aside from that, the priest had nothing else to do. So, by 1869, they established a church at Mena, but the priest liked to live in Dover Plains. So he lived in Dover Plains and served the church from Mena. Then he decided to move over there, his successor, and his successor decided to build a church in Millerton. And poor old Millbrook was left alone. Until 1870, they first started to come over here, the priests first started to come over and take care of the few Catholics who were there. But you, in your historical research, are aware of the fact that the railroad was being built. And with the railroad being built came an influx of Irish people who had been over here in the area around Dover Plains going back to 1821. The result was that people here began to ask for a priest to come over here. So the priest used to come over from Mena. In 1872, this building was this church built. But then it was Mission Church of Mena. In other words, this word, one asked what parish you were in, you'd say, I'm in the Mission of Mena. By 1890, there were enough Catholics here to warrant building a church, building and making a parish. The church remained in its site. Of course, there were changes like needless to say, they used to heat the church in the old days with wood stoves. Then next came the oil and the right coal and oil. For example, do you remember Dan Murphy, the man who died recently?
Yeah.
His grandfather built the smokestack in the back of the church here. And at the time they did it, there's up on top of the smokestack a date 1897. So from what I've seen in this, actually, what maybe we'll go walk and see it. Come on.
Beautiful church.
By the way, this church was renovated by Father Colwell. Most of you probably remember him. And yeah, beautiful. Yeah, he did that, and then when I came shortly after I came here, I put in the seats because the picture I have, you weren't here, were you?
No, you had done it just before we arrived.
The picture I have over in the rectory shows what I used to call the love seats. They had an aisle here with 2 seats on the end.
A little short pew. We have one at home.
Yeah.
That we bought.
And then the other one, and the aisle here was very narrow.
Was there a center aisle originally?
Yeah.
Oh, there was a
It
center.
was very, very narrow. And the side aisles were also very narrow. So come in for a minute just to see something. Yeah. Some of the priests, contemporaries of mine, by the way, tell me that when they first came here, they said Mass in the sacristy here, and there was a heating system, a pot-bellied stove right here in the rectory, in the church, the sacristy here. And then on Sundays they went out to the church. I presume they all wore their overcoats or something. and then I do know from Dan Murphy, Lord rest his soul, that the chimney was built, the smokestack was built in 1897.
And there's a beautiful baptismal fount, which is gorgeous.
Yeah. This picture here was given by one of the Dietrich. It was in his house, and he gave it to the church, and for a long time we had it upstairs in the choir loft.
You know,
This is a beautiful sacristy.
Danny's grandfather, Jimmy,
Ours is so small.
and he worked for Dietrich.
Oh, did he?
Well, a picture, the original pictures of the church.
Oh man, Dietrich.
This has been expanded. It's not as big the original. You can look out this window. Now, they wouldn't have normally, I don't think, have built it so that.
I probably had them in here, both Shannon Wood and Capricorn. And Jimmy Murphy was in charge of the gas plant at the same time, and he lived where Mrs. Boomer does on the corner there.
Oh, very interesting.
Little guy about this high, whiskers.
One of the sad things is,
He was quite a guy.
talking recently to Willie Murphy, I was talking about this, he never knew.
That it was his great-grandfather that built the chimney?
No. I didn't know this great-grandfather that built the church. Built the
You mean one of Jimmy's boys?
Willie Murphy.
One of Dan's boys. Dan and Pat's boys.
Didn't know the history.
Well,
I guess.
that's nice that you told them.
Good thing you know about it.
Now, one time I was talking to Ellen Marie O'Neill, and I was telling her that I understood that the rectory was transported down from the top of the hill to its present location. A little research revealed that I was wrong. I got my information from Dr. Mahoney, God rest his soul. Remember Dr.
Yes.
Mahoney? Dr. Mahoney one time told me that the rectory was put in its present site being moved down the hill. According to an article I have found going back to 1957, the Millbrook Roundtable says that the rectory was on the site of the hall over here.
The parish hall.
Yeah, and when Father Burns came here as it passed in 1890, the church bought the property on which was a blacksmith shop. You remember reading about that?
That's right.
Yeah. And the blacksmith shop moved, and the priest that gave ground to that whole property, and the priest then had the house on which had been the rectory moved to the present site. So it still goes back a long way.
Yeah.
Oh, I should say so.
Then I cannot find the origin of the hall behind there. I know from the article read here, it's very vague. It talks about Father Burns coming and so on, and then it mentions how he was anxious to build a hall and raise $15,000, which was a huge sum of money in those days. But it doesn't say anything about what date it was. I called up one of the old-time parishioners here, and she told me, because she wasn't born, her mother and father came to Italy in 1901, and at that time the hall was already in existence. So presumably Father Burns did want his hall. He definitely built it. He definitely built it because...
When was he here, Father Burns?
1890 to 1902.
Oh,
So he definitely built it because he built it with his own hands, really. He was a carpenter. And he did it himself with the help of some
Yeah, the parishioners. Yeah, that's something.
You know, it's hard to remember who was here, just which period of time. But going back when I was real little, one of the priests was here was a long time. It was Father Weir.
Yeah.
You probably have his record, but it seems to me that he was here for a large number of years.
I have to tell you a funny story. Father Weir, I use his name very frequently. I'll tell you why. Insofar as we have an old house with a lot of noises, you know, and some priests come and stay overnight, and they hear the noises, and they get upset. And it's like, I hear the noise. I don't pay attention. It's Father Weir.
I remember him going with his horse and buggy, making calls.
And when we talk about contemporaries, you see, one of my contemporaries dead a long time. I was stationed with him, though. He was up here as his first assignment in 19, he was ordained in 1926. His name was Father Lester Graham. And he gave Father Weir the first automobile ride he ever had. Passing house down history.
Yeah, there's a lot of anecdotes.
Yeah.
You start looking these things up and you find a lot of things, don't you?
Yeah. So,
that's nice.
but that used to be the church for weekdays, and then they used to use the. In fact, at the time of the price increase, well, I was thinking of doing the same thing.
Or having this as a, for you.
Weekly mass. But I decided to go.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Monsignor, you said something too with the rectory. Originally wasn't 3 stories, or it didn't have the gambrel roof on it, or what not? It's a mansard roof it has on it. You
I
said
don't know.
somebody had mentioned to you that maybe it had another.
See, a lot of these things are passed down the word of mouth. You don't know. I know from Dr. Mahoney and Louis Velletri, they tell me that this, they excavated, the time Father Burns, they excavated and then put the house, that's why we have the cellar in the place. They moved the rectory over from the side of the school, of the present hall.
Well, speaking of that, You don't need to put this down, Ellen. When I did some old things around the village and old businesses one meeting. I found an awful lot of them. And Edna Tilsley had a newspaper account in the Poughkeepsie Eagle sometime in 1906. Valentine Ricks, R-I-C-K-E-S. You know, Jimmy Ricks' grandfather owned the blacksmith shop that sat where the rectory is.
That's right.
And it said that this was an account of his death, and it was a picture of the blacksmith shop. And it said in there, he sold the property to Father Burns.
That's right. That's
almost exactly where your rectory sits now, by the looks of that picture.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know if you know Jimmy and Charlotte, they live down...
I know the name. They come, one of them still comes to church. One died,
one who used to march and pray Val, the brother with the whiskers, he died.
That's right.
But it's their grandfather.
He was buried from here. His grandfather sold the property.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when was the school built, Monsignor?
1957.
The school was built in 1957. Did the church own that property, or did they?
Oh, the church didn't own that property. That property was given by the Thorns. Thorn gave, that's in your long lifetime, Thorn gave the house and the property for in memory of Cardinal Hayes, and that became the White Hayes home. But the property in which the school is now belonged to Thorn, and when Monsignor Cole built the school, Mr. Thorn gave me the property.
It sure is.
I'm sorry I didn't put pictures for you.
Well, that's all right. You gave us a very descriptive.
Very descriptive. Well, I'm glad to know that your date was approximately 1870s. You know, establishing the building.
1872 was the actual building. But there is a cornerstone out there, hidden behind the bush. I crawled in one day on my hands and knees and found it. And it was, cornerstone. And it's put there, 1872. So,
the woodwork in this sanctuary is beautiful. Look at all that carving, the grapes and everything.
Very
beautiful.
Nice. Very nice.
In your battle with the fuel oil for your heat, have you ever wondered what it might have been like in the old medieval stone cathedrals with nothing whatsoever?
Had no heat at all.
Well, an interesting thing on that is I don't know whether you ever attended a mass in the old days when the priest used to wear the beretta, three-cornered hat. Well, the origin of that beretta goes back to the ancient medieval days. The Dominicans used to put the cowl over the head, and the priests, there's another group of priests, would put a hat because it was so cold. And when we get up in the altar, you take the hat off. You remember that, Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Take the hat off at the beginning mass, and then at the end you'd walk out because
put the hat on.
Walk through the corridors, and hold. In fact, if you've been to Europe, you'll find many of those cathedrals still pretty cold because they haven't modernized like St. Patrick's Cathedral. But and I think it would be too expensive to modernize, for instance, the St. Peter's.
Were the congregation seated in them, or did they stand?
No. In the United States, they were seated, but in Europe, even to this day, many basilicas are just open, and what the people do is bring their own full seat with them. And they have, it's interesting, if you go over there to see how they will bring their own kneeling bench with them too. And that to grow up, they grew up with that idea.
That's something.
Well, it's interesting. You find a lot of things. You've probably been looking up some of these things, and you find some little side anecdotes that make you laugh as you go along too.
That's right.
Yeah.
I was fascinated because I used to go to help out a priest in Croton Falls. In fact, I preached for the priest's eulogy when he died. And Croton Falls is probably one of the oldest churches up in this area. Close to Westchester County, but, or is it Westchester? Yeah, I guess.
Putnam, I think, or
Putnam.
Croton Falls, and it's probably
Putnam,
Westchester, yeah.
Putnam.
And that's in New Oregon.
Yeah.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
Those windows up there, when you had the old organ, you couldn't see those beautiful stained glass windows. And now they're all exposed, which is lovely. Really,
Very interesting.
it's amazing. You give us little bits and pieces, different people, and then all of a sudden all the little bits and pieces start falling into places. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for your time, and thank you for your interesting...
Looks like there was some rice here, and it's a little bit
We had a wedding yesterday, last night.
Oh, okay. And the rain is starting to make the rice expand.
Yeah.
The church.
No, earlier than that. Earlier than that. I really don't know when the cemetery began. There are headstones up there indicating it was way before the church. And I think what probably happened was people would die and they had the farm, the site here, and they probably buried them here. And that's why I would imagine they selected this area for a church. Yeah, because the cemetery goes back. I'm sorry to say I have no record of it. Usually in our records they attribute these things at the time the church was built.
Well, very often, though, they did put the cemeteries near the church.
Yeah,
I think
regardless
they
of
did.
denomination, most of the old churches had a cemetery in the churchyard.
Remember Margaret Flaherty, one time I was talking with her about it, she gave me a book, The History of Dutchess County, and indicated that the Irish immigrants come over and they kind of demanded that church be near where they were. Millbrook was not the village at the time, it was Harts village.
Yeah.
And then by the time the people got settled in here, there was some people died, the priest would come out and say mass here on the occasional funeral and bury them right up in the churchyard.
Yeah.
So, but I'm sorry I don't know the history of the cemetery.
Well, thanks for everything.
Thank you so much, Marcy.
I know that
really
Father Weir is not buried here.
Well, you can hear him.
We'll have to say that according to you, he still exists.
Thanks so much, Monsignor.
If you had known him, if you had known him, you can see how it would be.
I feel almost no, because then people think about it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, he was here so long, you know. He was a character, too.
Oh,
Thanks a lot.
you're in the right church at the wrong pew.
Parish Hall evidently was after the church, but it's built sort of looking like...
What do they use it for now? I know I went there to take rummage stuff.
They used to use it for a rummage sale, and when we first came here in 1971, sometimes they'd have like after mass. I remember when one of the they would have something like that, and like on Palm Sunday, the choir and everybody gathers there. But Cardinal Hayes used to use it. They had a couple of basketball nets in there, because I guess they don't have a gym up at Cardinal Hayes. So they used to come down and use it. And I really don't know I don't think it's, now since we have the school, I don't think the parish hall is used as much, because some of the meetings are used. And
They had suppers and card parties and dances and plays. They had one time up in the far end there was a little stage up in there.
Yes, there still is, Charlie.
And they used to have plays over there, and they'd have maybe a minstrel show or something like that going on, and lots of card parties and suppers. They used to have a lot of suppers.
Yep. Mrs.
My pictures I'm taking is underexposed. There's nothing I can do to get them up.
Mrs. Morona was telling me that she used to, and she said they used to cook on little gas jets and prepare suppers here. Johnny Marone and Buddy Marone's mother in the church hall. But of course now with the school, if they have anything, they'll have it up there, so they, don't use this as much as they used to. But there is a little stage in there, and hope you don't mind, Henry, but I'll just tape this so that it'll keep the information.
Sure. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to give you. You may know more historically than I do. We'll kind of compare notes maybe as we go.
Okay. Very good.
The house, this was Mrs. Marshall's house, as I understand. Right? Yes. Dr. and Mrs. Chancellor. I'm sorry, did I say Marshall? Yes, Chancellor. Right, I'm sorry.
It was a Thorn. She was originally a Thorn.
Right, now, what I'll do is I'll take you right to our history room that has her picture and all of that, and we'll kind of work our way from there, okay? This, this is all the original house, this section here. Okay, I know it more from when the sisters came in and took over.
Okay.
But this little parlor here, this is our... How you doing, gang? A little wet, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, good girls. All right.
Yeah.
Hi, honey. Okay. We jokingly call this the Pope's dining room. Whoever comes, we'll give them lunch in here. As I understand it, now again, my background with this is a bit limited. Dr. and Mrs. Chancellor lived in this house. It was given to her as a wedding gift from her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Oakley Thorne. Now, the story I've heard, I don't know how accurate this is, and again, you may know more than I, that Mrs. Parshall was also a daughter. Now, I don't know where her home was, but that's her picture, I'm told. So that there's kind of a family grouping there. Dr. and Mrs. Chancellor never had any children, to my knowledge. I was not informed of that, but that they lived here for a while, then moved out west, and Mr. and Mrs. Thorne gave this building and 50 acres of property in 1941 to Cardinal Spellman, then the Archbishop of New York, that something be done in honor of Cardinal Hayes. Now, I don't know why Cardinal Hayes was chosen. Again, the story is that Mr. Thorne at one time had met him, was a contemporary of some kind, and had asked that something be done in his honor. So 50 acres of property plus this house was given to the Franciscan Missionaries of Mary. And they're the ones that are still to this day the administrators of Cardinal Hayes' home. The term that's used is auspices. Some of their auspices. The sisters, some have, there are 10 or so living here now. There are about 3 or 4 who have an official function within the agency. Most of the staff are lay staff, however, at this time. When the agency began as a convalescent hospital for children. The sisters at that time were a semi-cloistered type of sister. They spent a lot of their time in silence and very humble, quiet kind of, just took care of the kids and that was it. As the agency evolved into what we call today a child care, please sit down if you're comfortable. What we call today a child care agency under New York State Department of Social Services. Some of the requirements for care became more, demanding in terms of state requirements. That kind of coincided with the beginning of modernization of the sisters, we use that term, where their own style of prayer life and working and the kind of garb they wore and all that began to change. That started happening in the early 60s. So in the early 60s, the agency turned over to a more multi-service kind of agency for what we call dependent neglected children. And that type of child we had up until the early 80s right now, but we're now changing over into what we call developmentally disabled children. And at this point, we have, in addition to the facility here that has 48 children in it, should be 50, we're too short. We have 5 group homes, which are homes that we rent out in 5 different sections of Dutchess County. We hire staff to live in there with 8 to 10 children in each home. We also have 32 children in foster homes throughout the county. So that's pretty much the basic encapsulated story. Now I can expand on that in any way in regards to questions that you might have. And we'd like to see the rest of the building.
We could, yeah.
How many
teachers do you have?
We have, we don't use the term teachers. This is not a school. We have taken the approach here. At one time there was a school here. There was what was called a hospital school, a 400 school from New York City, from the New York City Board of Education, when it was a convalescent home for children. They had a few of the rooms upstairs were set aside as classrooms, and there were teachers here. As we evolved out of convalescent care into taking more active, non-bedridden type of children, we began to put the children in other kinds of schooling. For a while we had the children over at the school system that Greer Agency had on their grounds, which was an independent school, but it was on their grounds, called the Hope Farm Union School District. Well, that, as you know, this past year is no longer functioning for any use that we could use. Now, but a few years ago, we started to see that that wasn't the best alternative for our children. We started putting them through the local school district. So right now, all of our children go out to local school districts, mostly through Millbrook School District, to BOCES, rehab.
Don't they go to St. Joseph's?
No, they don't.
Why don't they?
Well, because we're not allowed to by law. The children, well, there's 2 reasons. First of all, it would be your tax money being used twice. In other words, we're given...
You're using our tax money now. What are you talking about?
Well, then what, would you want us to pay tuition with it at a parochial school? Considering the fact that the majority of our children are Catholic? No, they're not. No, you're not listening. Only 50, ma'am, of the 50 children, wait a minute, our kids bring money into the school district. Oh, and it's true. It doesn't cost your school district any money to you as a kid. Here's what happens, and please listen carefully, because this is something that I think, if it's misunderstood, maybe reflects on our children, which I wouldn't want to see done. Any child that comes here, the school district they come from pays for their education. If there's a child that lives here in Millbrook who winds up having to go to a home for children like this in Buffalo, New York, Millbrook Central School District pays for that. That's the way it works. So any child that lives here, whatever school district they come from pays for it. So if I have a child, let's say, from the Bronx or a child from Middletown, New York, those school districts pay for their education. So it doesn't cost Millbrook Central School District taxpayer a single cent to pay. Now what I meant by taxpayers paying, I meant in the state sense, that the state has that system of paying. So that's the way that works. Now, if we were to spend money on tuition at St. Joseph's School, we have to take that from some other way for the children. We have to take it from recreation or allowance or food or something. We don't have that, so we don't do that. Plus the fact, there's another factor. First of all, our children are Catholic. By law, we can't discriminate on...
I'm surprised I thought you probably were.
Not at all. A long time ago, 18-something or other, there was a law that incorporated the idea of the state of New York paying private agencies to care for children that the state had to care for. The state felt it was cheaper to subsidize private agencies than to build their own buildings. The state deals with children involved in criminal activities through youth, I'm sorry, I gotta think of the name of that, Division for Youth. So they do have detention centers and what they call state schools, which in the old days maybe being called reform schools. Okay, there's also mental health facilities for children that the state maintains. psychiatric centers. Harlem Valley is one. Hudson River has an adolescent unit, a child unit. The state also has its own educational facilities, of course, as it builds, schooling systems in all kinds of ways. The state also has mental retardation centers, like Wasaya, Division OMRDD, Office of Mental Retardation and Developmental Disability. This is the Department of Social Service agency. Now, the Department of Social Services has always had the approach of paying the freight of a child to go to a private agency. It's cheaper than building a building and paying for the staff. All they do is pay for the child. We have to work the rest out ourselves. So the way that works then is that we get paid on a per day basis per child. It's called a per diem system. So I have 48 children today. I get $48 times the going rate. Going rate is somewhere around $50. So $50 times 48. And you can, when you figure that out, that's not going to be enough to pay for the 30 staff that are here today, and the electric bill and food. So we do rely upon private donations and any other kinds of income that we can get to come in to help us out. The sisters help them. They're there. They take very little from their own salaries for their own maintenance and give the rest back, which they are less and less able to do since they have less and less sisters. So the other reason that our children perhaps couldn't go to St. Joseph's, and of the 48, they only have 6 going in regular classes at Millbrook, is because of their own mental, psychological, and physical deficiencies. They're mostly going out to rehab and BOCES, which they wouldn't allow them to fit into St. Joseph's either. So the kind of child we have, even though they have a lot of difficulty, what we're trying to do is to make their life as normal as possible. Most institutional facilities take the approach of having everything right there on the grounds for the child never leave. But what happens is that eventually, when they do leave, they're lost. What we do as the children here, and as most of you probably encounter our kids all the time, worship in local churches, go to Sunday schools and local churches, use the local library, go to local schools. By that I mean, beyond here to BOCES and rehab. Our children are involved in scouting, they're involved in Little League, those that are able. I mean, there are very few that are able anymore to do those kinds of things. Those girls that just walked by said they were in town spending their allowance. We utilize local merchants. It's a very warm, accepting community, which, you're a part of as well as I am. And I see that. I live in the village. I see our children being accepted and part of the community as well as anyone else. And that has a therapeutic value, much more than you'll ever know. And this house has something to do with that too, because most institutional facilities for children are cold, sterile, clinical, professional kind of looking places that say to a kid, yeah, maybe it's efficient, but it doesn't do anything for them, I don't think, in the building itself.
Not making you feel like a family.
No, and this is definitely family, and you'll feel that as we go through. And I'll point out things as we go through that we consciously do to try to keep that going. Now, one of the things, as we go along, there'll be some of the children, especially since it's a rainy day, who will be here. And some of them have difficulties that maybe won't be apparent to you. Others are very apparent, and as you see them, if you have any questions about them, let's ask them when we're by ourselves rather than in the presence of the chair, just because some of them may be sensitive to us talking about them. But feel free to play with them or hug them or whatever. The kids are used to having, this is their house. And we will knock on doors before we go in them and make sure that it's okay for us to go in, but they're used to having visitors. They like to show, and they're very proud of this house. One of the things that we teach the children here is that while they're living here, it's their house, and they should take care of it. They all have chores to do. We expect everyone to treat everything. I mean, this is original furniture in this room, left over from the chancellors.
The rug too?
The rug too.
Oh, wow.
When you walked in the front corridor there, that was an original Oriental rug. We teach the children to help care for these things. And we have housekeepers and maintenance people that, do the kind of cleaning that a child obviously couldn't do. I mean, I expect this little guy, for instance, to, he's still in a crib. He doesn't have to make his bed. His older brothers and sisters do. But he has chores. He's expected to clean up after himself in some ways. He empties trash cans and things like that, under supervision, of course. And the same is true here, even with our youngest children. We just get them into that kind of a habit. And the other thing, that philosophy that we take, that children some places take the approach, again, of saying, well, if you give the kids nice things, they'll break them, so don't give them to them. And we take the opposite. If we have something nice and we teach them to respect it, it teaches them that we respect them. The children feel good about themselves, because we have had children here who have bombed out of several other places, who have not made it in a foster home, who have deliberately broken things in other settings, who come here and because of the approach feel much more comfortable, open up, and since they feel better about themselves, they treat their surroundings much better. And you'll see as we go along. The other thing is that we have a maintenance. I don't know if you saw the round table a few weeks ago about John Simon Selly, our maintenance chief. The love that he and his young men, and he's in the 15 years, I'm sure there's been maybe 8 or 10 different young men who have worked under him, who have then gone off to college or whatever, but there's a love that they give to this building by the way they maintain it, and also by the furniture and the cabinets and things that they have built right into the wall, so to speak. So you'll see some of that too. And why don't we walk around and see a few of the things.
How much of the building is original?
All right, I'll show you that as we go through. There are 3 wings off of the original building, 2 of which we'll go in, 1 we won't because it's the convent, which we don't have access to. Okay, now, let's, for instance, she's... Yes.
Those are the parents of these 2 girls.
Yes.
That's the way I understand. Maybe you can help me with that for future reference. If somebody could write down at some point or collect some of that background information for me.
If you want to remember.
Okay.
This is Mr. Oakley Thorne.
Mm-hmm.
And Mrs. Oakley Thorne, her name was Helen S. Thorne. Great gardener. She's the one that instituted the tribute garden up here.
Right.
And all. And these are their daughters. This was Charlotte Thorne. And that was Margaret Thorne.
Margaret, okay.
Margaret Thorne was married 3 times. She married Edward H. Carl down in Thorndale, alongside, you know where Paul Beck lives?
Mm-hmm.
You know that stone house just beyond him?
Oh, yeah.
That was built for her.
Ah.
And then she had a girl. I don't know where she is or what happened to her, but she had a daughter. This one now, Mrs. Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
And then she married Lawrence B. Smith. And then she married Darrell Parshall.
Oh, okay.
She and Carl and she and Lawrence Smith lived in the stone house. She married Parshall and moved out to Smithfield.
Oh, okay.
This one, Charlotte Thorne, was first married to a man by the name of Birdseye B. Lewis.
My goodness.
And they lived down on the South Road. You know where Mr. Percy lives?
No, but
You know where Mrs. Bush lives? You know where Ellen lives?
I know South Road, so I could figure one of the...
You go down the South Road and eventually, after you go by the horseshoe,
yes,
then you go across the bridge.
Yes, right,
pond.
yeah, right.
Well, the house that the pond belongs with is where the Lewis.
Okay, I understand. Yes, okay, got it.
She was married to Birdseye B. Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
He was killed in the First World War.
Ah.
But they had a son named Oakley Thorne Lewis.
Okay.
Now, his father was killed. His grandfather adopted him and changed his name from Oakley Thorne Lewis to Oakley Lewis Thorne. And he is the one who recently died as the father of Oakley B. that lives down here now.
Okay, I understand. Very good. Oh, thank you. That's very helpful.
And then she, after that performance, she married Dr. Chancellor, Dr. Philip Chancellor, and he had one or two boys already. His wife had died, I think, but he had children of his own. And one of them, his name was Philip. He grew up here, but they were California people, and then they moved.
So they didn't have any children of their own, but they had children by the marriage.
No, they had children, but she didn't have any more.
Right, I see. Right. Okay, so there were children living here.
Yeah.
Good.
That's, yeah.
Charlie, just a point, then I live on South Road now. Mrs. Lewis, you said she and her husband lived on South Road originally?
The Lewises lived in the house that Percy's live in now, by the pond there.
Percy.
You can
No,
see-
no, Percy.
Wait a minute, Shirley.
Shirley. Oh, Mr. Shirley's house?
Yeah, that house,
That
Shirley.
was the originally Lewis, and then it went. Then what? Went Miss Whitney bought it from
Yeah,
the.
yeah,
Didn't know that. So Mr. Shirley's house
yeah.
was
They lived in there for what?
Mrs. Lewis. Now, did they build that?
I don't know. See, they're enough older than me.
Yeah.
The children, yes.
That's something. Wow, that's
I can't
really
think of her
interesting.
name.
Shirley, Mr. Shirley lives there now, and Miss Whitney used to
I'm
live
saying
there.
this is now, we're going into a wing that was added onto the back of the building. From the upstairs floors, you'll be able to look out on the roof and see how this is a wing, but this is where the youngest children live. Hi, Jimmy, how you doing?
Little boy.
This is my little boy. I'm bringing through a quick tour here.
You got a plate? I'm having a little trouble with rain.
Okay, well, we won't disturb.
Yeah.
I got sneakers.
Yep.
A little bigger.
Hi, gang.
That's pretty nice.
Again, I don't know what each of these rooms were originally, but this is a dentist office.
Hardware.
Yes, notice all the doors, and you'll also notice there are no locks except on things like the dentist office. We still have the original doors with the latches on. You'll notice the thickness of the walls. I mean, you know, it's just, I understand it was built in 1923. That's the,
Sounds about right.
what I was told, and that a lot of the people who built it and some of the materials even were imported for just to build this house. I'm told the style is Norman, and but it looks older to me than it was built in 1923. But I guess it's the way in which it was built. And
They brought some stuff over from France to put in here. I don't know what they brought, but they brought some stuff.
I'm told when we go out and look at the entranceway, the stone around the entrance, I'm told that those, just a minute, that some of those stones are actually either from a building or old tombstones or something, that some building that was destroyed in, I don't know what war, Crimean or the First World War or something, and there's bullet holes in them and there's all kinds of things. It's, you know, so they